Alright, so here we are, part 2, Cinema 4D Robot ARM tutorial. A couple different things we're going to do in part 2. We are going to set up the knuckle and finish modeling that part. We're going to use one of the arms and just modify it to do that. Let's see, we are going to make sure that our anchor points are lined up where they need to be. We're going to set up the parent-child relationships so that when we're rotating things, things flow the way they need to. And we will step into the rigging of the expresso. So, let's go ahead and get started here. First thing I'm going to do is let's see. I'm going to delete my instance. I'm done using it. And I'm going to take my cube and I'm going to take it out of the null. So let's delete this null. We don't need it anymore. Let's see, I need to go to my modeling mode in order to see where my anchor point is. And I want that anchor point to be a little more out inside of the little tip here. So I'm going to grab this tool here and just move that down a little bit so it's more towards the tip, and then when I'm rotating it, that'll be better. I'm going to drop my hyperNURBS into my cube and use my PSR zero out tool to zero out the position, scale, and rotation of my hyperNURBS, then drag it out and drop my cube back into it. So now both my cube and my hyperNURBS have the same anchor point position. Alright. Okay, let's see. What do we want to do? I'm going to drag out a copy of my cube, and I'm going to bring this, whoops, I always do that. I need to click off of my anchor point movement tool. I'm going to drag this out and start breaking up this geometry in order to use it for my knuckle. Okay, so basically what I want to do, I want to take out a big chunk of the middle here and replace it with a rotation area so that I can rotate my geometry. You know what? Actually, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to start fresh. Bring out a cube. And this is going to be two sides. I'm going to break up the geometry a little bit, add some segments. So let's see here. That's 3 segments. 3 segments is fine in the X. I only want 1 segment in the Y, and let's go ahead with 3 segments in the Z. Okay. So let's take a look real quick and look at the original robot arm that I created. We'll go to Vimeo. Actually, why am I doing this? Why don't we just open the file? That's not the one I want. Let's go to robot arm and open that up. And here we go. So if I back out a little bit here, what we're working on is this part here. What I call the knuckle. and the reason why I'm calling it a knuckle is because it's so much shorter. But we need the pivot point, and we need a area for the hydraulic to attach, and then we're also going to create these cylinders here to make a rotation point. Now, I got frustrated with the rotation, and I ended up not using it on my final piece, but I had a user data here that you could rotate the claw. So I'm going to try in this to include that rotation. So, whoops. We do need Cinema 4D, we just need our we need the right project. There we go. Okay, so here we are. So first of all, I want it to connect here. So I'm going to make it editable by pressing C on my keyboard. I'm going to come in and I'm going to go to polygon mode. I'm going to use my live selection tool, and I'm going to select this polygon face, hold shift and select that polygon face. Going to go to mesh, use my create extrude, and I want to extrude this out to connect. Okay, so that is going to intersect here and connect the two together. Okay, so that part's done. I then want to grab my live selection tool, and I'm going to turn down the radius a little bit, and I want to select this polygon and this polygon, so shift select, and I'm going to choose my extrude tool again. Remember, you can get to your tools that you've used recently just by holding down there, and I'm going to extrude this up, and I can always change that in a little while. I'm going to go for another short extrusion on that. Okay. So let's bring out our cylinders now. And I'm going to move that down, and I want it to be on the, let's see, on the plus Z axis. Click on my cylinder, change it to plus Z, and I want to scale up the rotation value, and I want it to be thinner. And I'm going to add some geometry by increasing my height segments, so that when I stick it inside of a extrude NURBS, it should smooth out. Okay, so now I need to duplicate that, and I need 3 of these. So hold control, drag, drop, hold control, drag, drop, and the center one I'm going to decrease the size. I'm going to grab the first one and bring it into this geometry here. I'm then going to grab the middle one and kind of place it between the two. I want it intersecting a little bit. I'm going to zoom in and just look at my size. I want to come down on my, that's better. Here we go. Take this one, and I want them kind of sandwiched together. And we're getting pretty close to the knuckle. That's not bad. Now, this one is going to end up rotating. So let's go ahead. I'm going to make them all editable. C, C, C. I'm going to shift select all of these pieces, alt G to drop them into a null. I'm going to call this null Knuckle. And so now we have our Knuckle. And everything is, let's see, I'm going to bring this cube up so that they're better lined up. And I'm going to bring out a hyperNURBS and drop my Knuckle into the hyperNURBS. So there we go. Okay. Now I need my hyperNURBS anchor point to be right here. So I'm going to use my anchor point move tool and slide that down. Roughly that position, maybe a little more out. And then click off of my anchor point movement tool to slide the Knuckle into position. And I want to look at it from the top to see where they're lining up. I want them overlapping a little bit but not intersecting. That looks pretty good. Okay, let's grab a cylinder and I'm going to drop that into my hyperNURBS and press my position scale rotation to change that, and I want this to be on my X position. I want to drop it down in the radius, and I'm going to pull it back out of my hyperNURBS. And let's see, I'm going to drag this back in a little farther. A little bit more. And I'm going to realign this one. Bring it back out. Okay. So I'm going to name this Knuckle as well. Okay, let's drop our geometry down. And I'm going to put this in between these for now. It does need to be a child somewhere so it doesn't get left behind. That's fine. One thing you can do with this hinge point, I could make the height more and model it. Well, let's do it. Alright, here we go. Quickly, I'm going to add some segments. Let's see. I'm going to go to my top mode. Go to my, let's see, we need to make it editable. Here's my cylinder. Press C on the keyboard, or you can use the Make Editable button here. I'm in polygon mode. I'm going to grab my rectangular selection tool. I want to make sure only select visible elements is off, and I'm going to drag around those. I'm going to go to Mesh, Create, Extrude, and I'm going to extrude out the end of that. Then I'm going to do the exact same thing. Now it says 12.75. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to make it 12.5, and that way I can make both ends equal. So rectangular selection, grab my end polygons, I can grab my extrude, and I'm just going to drag it out. I can drag it out as far as I want because I'm going to change here and change it to 12.5, and that way they're equal. Okay, I'm then going to get rid of a little bit of this extra space by grabbing my I want modeling mode, and I'm just going to bring these in so that they're a little closer. There we go. And so now you see I have that pivot point. Looks a lot better. I'm going to extrude it, scale it out a little bit my geometry is overlapping and I don't want that. So, alright, let's drop this in to my knuckle null. And what that's going to do is I'm going to name it pin, and that's just going to round it up a little bit because it's inside that hypernerbs. Okay, so we've got two pieces now. I've got my knuckle and my first arm. So let's go ahead. I'm going to drag out a copy of this arm. So now I have two arms, and I'm going to take the top one and I'm going to move it down on the z-axis, and I want to line it up so they're not intersecting here. I want them close but not touching. And I'm going to take a duplicate of my pin that I just made, and I'm going to drop it out here, control drop, so that it is where I need it. And I'm going to grab this cube, I'm going to make it a child so that I can line them up. So if I grab my pin, make it a child here, hit my PSR, boom. My pin's in the right spot. Good. And I might as well just leave it right. Nope. Because it's not being extruded. So what I'm going to do is drag it out of the cube but leave it in the hypernerbs, and then I need to group these two pieces together. So I'm going to shift select to get both of them, and alt G to turn that into a null. And now you can see it's the way I want it. Okay, so let's see here. I'm gonna just keep things organized. This one I want to call, well, let's wait a minute. So I've got arm 1, arm 2, and knuckle. Let's go ahead. Name them arm 1, and a nice handy trick, I can use my down arrow to name this one arm 2, and my knuckle is already called my knuckle. So looking pretty tidy. I kind of like it so far. And let's see. Alright, so we did our modeling. Let's double check our anchor points. So this anchor point is where it needs to be. This anchor point's where it needs to be. And this anchor point is where it needs to be. Wait a minute. No. Alright. I need to fix these bigger arm anchor points, because I actually want this arm to rotate from this end. So I'm glad I checked that. I am going to just roughly drag it out that way, and then go into my side view, and that is where I want to do this from. It's pretty good. Just drag it in maybe a little bit. Alright, arm 2, we're going to do the same thing. So that should be, come out here. And I need this to be roughly here. Now this one has the pin. And that will allow me to center it up a little better. So what I want to do is just, if I line this axis up with that line, then I know that it's good, and I'm going to line this up with that. So this horizontal line and this vertical line will give me center. Hopefully that works out good. I'm going to click off of this tool before I forget. Alright, let's test this out. Actually, first, parent-child relationships. So, I need to drop arm 2 into the null, that is arm 1, and I'm going to drag these things above the null, and then I need to drag, let's see, I need to drag the knuckle into the hierarchy of this, but this is a hyperNURBS. So in order for both of these pieces to be to get the hyperNURBS, I need to wrap them in a null. So I'm going to select them both, Alt G, and now I know I have my knuckle here, and I'm just going to go ahead and grab the cube and bring it up. Okay, so looking good. I think we can test it. So I've got arm 1, arm 2, and knuckle. So the way it should work is if I grab my rotation tool, this should move all pieces, and yes it does. Good. And then I'm going to undo that. Command Z. Arm 2 should move it and its outer counterpart here. Now I am going to admit I think I have way too much geometry in that, so yes, that's moving both pieces like it should, which is good. So Command Z. I think in my knuckle I have way too much geometry. So here's my knuckle, and this should go there. So that is working. All is well. Yes, these pieces here, there's way too much geometry in there. Unfortunately, now that they're editable, my modeling skills are not such that I know how to do that. But let's take a look real quick. I know if I wanted to make more geometry, I could use the Subdivide tool. So these cylinders here are what are giving me the extra geometry. Let's click on that one, go to Mesh, Transform, Magnet, Spline, N-gons, Normal, Axis, Create Polygon, Commands, Melt, Subdivide, Triangulate, Untriangulate. Change point order, Optimize. Let's try Optimize. Well, I'm not exactly sure. I think it gave us less geometry. Let's go to the next one and try that. Mesh. It looks like it's giving us less geometry, so less polygons. And you may have a faster machine, but mine is slow. So there we go. Alright. I'm going to live with that. I do not notice any adverse effects, so I think we're good. Now, my claw is going to go right here. Let's go ahead and rig it up. So, what I need to do is I'm going to reuse my controller because I've already got this user data made up, but I am going to go into my user data and manage user data, and I want to go to arm bend 1, Actually, I can leave those just the way they are, except I'm going to do this one. I'm going to say knuckle bend. Knuckle bend, and take the 3 off. Okay. Alright, so let's double click on our expresso tag. Now we were in here in part 1 and we created this, but I'm going to delete this. And I'm going to drag out arm 1, and this is going to connect to arm bend 1. Arm 2 will connect to arm bend 2, and the knuckle will go to arm bend 3. Now, it did not update the name, so hopefully this will still work. I'm going to drag and drop on the blue, which will give me my picker and allow me to pick the things that I want to happen with that user data. So coordinates, rotation, and the pitch is what I want. So I'm going to do this on all 3. Drop it, coordinates, rotation, pitch. Going to take this and drop it there. Coordinates, position, rotation, pitch. Okay, so let's just slide that over, grab my controller, take a look at the user data, and this one moves everything. This one is moving that one, and this one should move the end one, but not from the right position. So my pivot point on this last piece is not correct. Let's go ahead. I think we can close this expresso. My user data seems to be fine. I'm going to zero out all of these, and I'm going to grab my knuckle, and yes, you can see here that I need to move my anchor point. So I will be going into my side view to do that. And I want to look at let's see, go to my controller. I want that to be 0. Knuckle, coordinates. For some reason we got that a little off, so we'll change it. Oh, that's what I was doing wrong. I grabbed the wrong knuckle. So let me back up. We need our expresso. I'm going to delete this knuckle and drag out this knuckle, and then it should work. Coordinates, rotation, pitch. And just to test it, okay, there we go. Alright. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is set up our minimum and maximum coordinates for the bending of these pieces. So let's go ahead and do that. And the main thing we want to do is set it up so that things can remain realistic. And you know what? We're actually going to wait on that because we don't have our hydraulics in. And what we want to do is make it, see, if you drew a line from here to here, what you would be looking for is an intersection of the hydraulic as it's intersecting here. And then you also want to look for an intersection of, so we'll wait until we have our hydraulics all set up and ready to go. I think we're going to call it quits for part 2. We did some modeling adjustments, some tweaking, and we modeled our knuckle. We moved some anchor points around so things would rotate from the right positions. We set up our parent, parent-child relationships, and we rigged up the expresso. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to minimize all these nulls and containers, and I'm going to wrap everything into another null. So Alt-G, and I'm going to call this robot arm. There we go. So now I have my robot arm and my controller nice and neat. Okay. Till next time, part 3 coming up, where we will work on our hydraulics. We're going to attach our hydraulics to the different pieces that we have set up for that. So there'll be, let's see, we'll have a hydraulic arm going from here to here, and another hydraulic arm from here to here. And we will also work on our claw using an IK chain. So coming up, we've got some constraint tags we're going to use, and some IK tags we're going to use. We're going to set up a goal and get that going. See you next time.